Okay, I tell you what it's like. You get to see, it's not even like the Archers is occasionally like getting dressed up to go to work, and you get to think, oh, that looks nice. They look nice. It's just like they're just padding around in manky old jogging bottoms with a string vest on.
Oh, I feel seen.
It did feel very sort of regurgitated, as if it could have been last week's. There wasn't much new, was there, apart from Rylan, really?
There's the start.
Okay, Peter, there you go.
What's happening?
Grog.
Hey everyone, it's a Sideshed podcast with me, Peter Fickling, Keri Warwick and Matthew Weir. Well, what a brilliant week. We had Psychsy, we had... What? Was that laughter? Keri?
Yeah.
Orbis?
Yeah.
Do you disagree with me?
I would never disagree with you, Peter. It's just slightly different to what you were saying before we hit record.
Peter's like the Rishi Sunak of the Tory council elections.
That's
He's
painfully accurate. That is painfully accurate.
Everything's going absolutely fine. Nothing to worry about here.
The Archers is fabulous. Really stimulating. New stuff all the time. Never regurgitated. Never going round and round in circles and sounding like last week's. Not that at all.
Psychsy, who's he then? He's I don't know. He's Jacob Rees-Mogg, kind of like, wildly and inappropriately obnoxious. Tom is, I don't know, maybe sort of Tom Tuggenhat suddenly getting a conscience at the last minute. Anyway.
Tom Tuggenhat is becoming more suspect by the day.
But he's living a very much in the line to the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Very unfair on blind people. But anyway, let's get stuck in. I've mentioned Psychsy, so should we chuck an advert in, and then we can talk about... Sorry, I'm still going to be staying conservative mode now. And then we can talk about what a fantastic job Jasper Garrett's doing. Right, so we've all been wondering what would it sound like if Leonard got jealous because Psychsy, aka Jasper Garrett, started flirting with Jill, and we got to find out.
That's what it sounded like.
Like the way he called him Lenny and Len,
yeah.
And Leonard had to step in and correct him. But it's not going to help, is it, when Ben brings his new best friend from the Laurels back to the farm, and he turns around to your girlfriend and said, "You've been in my wank bank for 50 years, Jill. Anyway, ta-ra."
I know. And I liked that she had a lemon dress and a lemon drizzle. So it's like lemon dressel. While she was shelling peas on the back step. Yeah, I bet she was. You can imagine.
I thought she'd have served up a carrot cake.
Oh, yeah. Very good, Matthew. No tumbleweed there.
Somehow I thought that lemon dressel should get a tumbleweed, but I found myself laughing anyway. But like old men kind of get a pass for behaviour that would be absolutely sort of prison worthy in a man my age. That was very much the vibe I was getting from Psychsy. Was kind of like, yeah, you don't say like, oh yeah, I was filling my wank bank with looking at you when you were young and in your lemony dress. It's just horrible, really unpleasant,
really awful. Yeah, and but Jill was loving it, isn't she? She's like, oh, what are you like? And Leonard's growling next to her, whilst Jasper Garrett's got a sort of hard on in front of them all. And Ben's nervously pouring tea. It's a very strange setup, isn't it? I find him highly suspicious. Also, they made a little bit of an effort this week with Ben helping him out of the sofa, helping him up off the sofa, and like he was going, "Oh, thank you." But half the time I've been thinking, why is he in this care home? He seems fine until this week.
I imagine he's like one of those ginormous Americans where they actually have to take a wall out of the house to get them to the hospital. And Psychsy had been kind of driven to the farm on a flatbed, kind of like Mr. Creosote.
That's why he's in there. I see. And why he was reluctant to go down the stairs to take part in something or other. I can't remember what it was. And Ben, it's so bad, isn't it? They've literally known each other a handful of weeks, and he's already saying to Ruth, he was trying it on with her as well, wasn't he? Saying, you can't possibly be old enough to be his mother. Yeah, just very strange setup, isn't it, between them all? That Ben, he said that Ben has really changed his life. Not from what I've heard. He's just sometimes chatted to him and shown him a dog, and then brought him up to the farm.
Leonard remembers him from when his wife was in the Laurels.
Yeah,
as well, doesn't he?
yeah. And the staff complained about him, didn't they?
Do we think that he is wrong? And your spidey sense is going off, Keri. Do you think that Ben has misjudged him and he's actually going to turn out to be a bit of a monster?
Like you were saying about how he's being really sort of inappropriate, A, to Jill, B, in front of Jill's fella. You've been invited as a guest here. You're being really brash and awful. I just don't like that about him. He's rude.
Yeah.
One key sign that he might not be the full quid is that moment they were discussing modern tractors versus old tractors, and Ben said, my Uncle Tony's got a really old rickety tractor that he rides around in. And Sykesy said, I'd like to meet him.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, would this happen? I don't like things where it's like, would this happen? I know it's sort of, as long as it's possible, they allow it in here. But they really stretch that whether it could be possible thing. Like, you work in a care home, you take one of the residents home with you. Is that normal? I don't know.
I mean, they mentioned it a few weeks ago that he'd gone in on his day off, hadn't he? Just to hang out with Sykesy. But now he's going to bring truckloads of residents from the Laurels to Brookfield. It's going to be a disaster, isn't it? Like, David's going to accidentally run over them in his tractor or knock them into the silage. I don't know if you've ever seen the footage of when the Americans went into Jonestown after Jim Jones had convinced them all to drink the Kool-Aid, and there was just bodies everywhere. And I kind of feel like Brookfield's going to look like that.
Do you remember that comic, that Gary Larson's Boneless Chicken Ranch?
Yes.
Yeah, just lots of old sort of like blue rinses and cardigans scattered all across the yard.
I did tweet ages ago, what is the point of Sykesy? And by that, I was deliberately provoking a bit of a debate. Part of it was because I find him intensely irritating. Part of it was because, people did come back saying, oh, it's to show that how Ben is operating in the care home. I was thinking, yeah, but you could do that with any number of other residents. You don't have to have this particular person who has a link back to Brookfield. There's some point to him having that link, isn't there? Something's got to happen.
We are in the presence of somebody who worked and volunteered in a care home in their late teens, which is me. So I could give you some first-hand experience on this. You can find some really interesting individuals in there, and sometimes you really have to coax that out of them. Like, for example, I've a woman who was almost monosyllabic over a period of months finally ended up getting a photo album. She'd been a missionary and worked all over Africa. Things like that, So it is, there is depth to it. As far as taking them to the farm, I think that's just the connection that he worked there, isn't it? I think if Ben lived in, he wouldn't take him round to the house to just meet Josh and Lily and Paul. I think it's that connection that he was a worker on the land.
Yeah.
But now Ben's being cornered by all these people at work going like, why does he get to go to your farm? I want to go too. So he's opened up Pandora's portaloo, hasn't he?
I worked in a care home as well when I was doing my degree as a cleaner and got chatting to lots of people in there about their lives. It was great, but I didn't take any of them home with me.
That sounds like you confiscate them. Like suddenly they're like, where's Joyce? Warbis has her in the boot.
Why doesn't Jill properly remember him and stuff as well? And why does he keep going on about how much he fancies her? What's he going to do?
If it gets rid of Jill, I will suddenly be the biggest Sykesy fan there is. So,
True, yeah.
Pendulum could swing in the other direction. You know how Ben has been this kind of very vulnerable man recently, and obviously there was a kind of a plot about him potentially committing suicide, or that was kind of and he spoke about the fact that he had suicidal thoughts. Did you, like me, think that about Tom today? Were you a bit kind of worried that Tom was having some kind of massive breakdown, and then suddenly felt cheated when it was? I'm not being silly. I'm not trying to make light of suicide, but felt cheated when all of that concern turned out he was just a bit worried about the photo shoot.
Yeah.
Are you saying, as Pat and Helen said, that Tom hasn't been his usual cheery self?
Yeah, and they said, a bit worried about Tom. He's really monosyllabic. We're all like looking at the radio like, what? That's exactly what he's like all the time. But I thought he acted the sort of sounding a bit fed up. He did quite well at that, I thought. But yes, the outcome was disappointing. I thought he'd maybe found some credit card bills of Natasha's. He was having doubts about her. Because if it was about the photos, surely you would say, oh, I just can't get it out of my head that the photos should never have happened. Would you brood about that so much without mentioning it to your missus?
It doesn't seem like that big a deal. You gave way on making it happen in the first place, and you facilitated it. Obviously, you compromised yourself. You got, like he went into it voluntarily. He wasn't completely powerless. And so you just say, yeah, by the way, if it's all right, this can be a one-off. They're as much my kids as they are yours, and I can't stomach it. So sorry. But, you got your way last time. Hope that's enough.
Do you think there's like some perpetuity deal that they haven't thought about, which means they can just continue to use the kids' faces over and over again and they haven't read the small print?
Collect them from the farm as many times as they want. 15 years old, 17 years old.
Keep using the baby images, but,
the Hitler nappies will be sort of knocking about in 100 years' time.
Hitler nappies, brought to you by Schaefer Bass.
Swindon. Yeah, that's right. Hitler nappies are made in Swindon.
I know I'm always really tediously practical about it, but I think this was a micro plot to keep us focused on the fact that this is still out there. Remind us about the photo shoot so that they can bring it back in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, I think so, because I was convinced that Pat is going to discover this. As I said about a month ago, she'll be the one to find out. She'll see it on a hoarding or something, and it'll kick.
Yeah, they have to keep it bubbling along in our minds, don't they? Because if they didn't mention it at all, when they do discover it, we'll be going,
They've realised that they've made the Archers so bad of late that they can't take it for granted people have been listening, which ironically makes it worse and worse. And it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
I just felt that maybe Tom is feeling the pressure with all the new stuff that's going on at Bridge Farm, because you've got the wetlands, you've got the edible forest, which is now going to be illuminated.
Which is somehow like the Amazon forest all of a sudden.
Yeah. And now they've got chicken wrestling.
I thought that's what Sykesy was doing to pictures of Jill.
Did you not hear Natasha say she couldn't stay for roast lamb because she'd left Tom wrestling a chicken?
Oh, yes. Yes. I was too fixated on the roast lamb.
I just got this idea of Tom being dropped into this like pen in a barn going, come on, you fuckers.
I thought it meant that he was wrestling with Lee.
Surely chicken wrestling is a euphemism for masturbation. Surely.
He's wrestling with his chicken.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he was doing.
Like Natasha and Helen together, they both felt that their partners were going off them, didn't they? Or would potentially go off them.
I did like the bit where the editor got confused and kept on cross-fading to the Welsh edition of the Archers all the way through Natasha's bit.
She's cussing him out, isn't she?
Well, do we have any... Well, I know we do have some Welsh listeners.
I don't know if you know this, Peter, but there was one week you weren't on the show, and it was when she was giving birth to the twins. She had a phone call with her mum, Caitlin, before Caitlin came to stay, and I put it all through Google Translate and played it on the pod.
I know, I do remember.
Are we led to believe that there was something else going on because Natasha switched to Welsh, didn't she, in the hospital when she took the phone call? I am a bit of a nerd when it comes to languages. I did activate the microphone on Google Translate, and I know what she said. So would you like to hear the translation?
I would love to, Matthew. I can't wait.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, hi, Mum. Yeah, everything's fine. Just 1 second. I need to get rid of this dopey sausage fucker. I'll send the soppy cunt out to get me a herbal tea, even though I know full well the cafe closed a sodding hour ago. No. Still no idea who the father is. I know, right? Laugh my fucking ass off.
She's a wrong one. But who can blame her?
I mean, I quite like it. I mean, I love the Welsh. Love the Welsh language. I think it's great that she's dropping some in. But we know Tom doesn't speak Welsh, so it does seem very strange that she would just kind of almost talking out loud, chuck in little globules of Welsh here or there. It doesn't seem very natural. I don't know. I've never been Welsh, and I've never been married to Tom Archer, so.
You might still hold the crown, but Jolene came close with who has the worst Natasha impression.
Oh, yes.
She did a Justin impression this week, of which your Justin impression is fantastic, Peter. But
Thank you.
your Natasha impression kind of went like slightly south of the Bay of Bengal, as I recall.
It's hard. I mean, because it's okay.
I thought you were having a go again then. It's hard.
Go on, do it.
Oh God, I can't do that. I can't do Welsh.
No, you do. The ones you do well, you're absolutely amazing at, Keri. Who was it you did a couple of weeks ago? I was absolutely flabbergasted.
Sometimes my Peggy was all right.
You did a good Linda. No, you did a good Kate, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
I can't do it if someone asks me to. It's like lots of things in life.
I love your Peggy. Give us a Peggy. Just say something poisonous.
I can't, Peter. Have you heard what I just said? I can't do it. It has to just come naturally.
I can do Keri's Peggy.
Go on then.
It's a sort of evil witchy creature.
That's it.
Yeah. So,
how I miss her.
Talking of evil witches, we can swing back to Jolene. I feel like she has got short shrift by being the kind of like the massive, feverish royalist. It doesn't ring true for me that she would be a massive royalist. I don't know why.
Is she not just doing it to get punters in to the pub?
You think?
I think she's totally the sort.
Oh,
Do you?
okay.
Because Susan, it made complete sense. Like Susan, like I joked a couple of weeks ago, like the king is the ultimate manager. But for Jolene, I don't know. I sort of feel like she would have a kind of a brought up the hard way, slight grudging annoyance with them. But
when she was shouting at Kenton about messing up the illumination thing, it was all about God. We could have been on the map, and people would come from far and wide. And he was going, but the electricity bill, and she was like, yeah, but they buy loads of beer. So I thought it was more to do with getting the punters in. But you could be. And Kenton isn't really putting up much of an anti-royalist stance, is he, as he puts the bunting on?
No, but he's not up for it, is he? I mean, he doesn't, because he had that conversation with Jim.
Yeah.
Where Jim said to him, I didn't have you down as a royalist. And he said, I'm not. And he was like, oh, good to hear it. Jim's basically going to go home, shut his curtains and listen to classics, isn't he, for 24
uplifting
hours.
music and avoid it like the plague, he said. Yeah.
Do you think that'll be the first Justice album he's listening to?
Are you going to self-tumbleweed? Matthew's editing this week, listeners.
Justice.
Yeah, they're like that French electronica duo.
Oh, I'd like to imagine Jim listening to French electronica.
Wait, how many times do we have to tell Matthew about the demographic of this podcast?
I like the look of them.
We have some very musical astute listeners.
We do.
Let's not forget, the late, great Owen Kiffin had encyclopedic knowledge of the Beastie Boys.
Keri, notice how Matthew's very cleverly turning this against me to basically make out that I'm having a good dig at the listeners.
No, I'm not.
They've got a good look. I like what they look like. I'm looking at them on my phone. I'm going to listen to them later. Yeah.
I'll add them. I'll like them on Spotify, so I'll listen to them. Yeah. I'm confused now. So Jolene, Justice, she's a royalist. Kenton is. It seems like kind of I don't know, agnostic to the whole thing.
Just easy life. Do what he's told.
Yeah.
Keep the pub ticking over. He's a lazy bastard, really, isn't he?
Yeah, he keeps going upstairs for a sandwich every 5 minutes, doesn't he?
I don't blame him.
So Jim is the only out-and-out Republican.
Yeah.
Kenton is kind of agnostic / anything for an easy life. Jolene's the royalist, and is that it? Is that as deep as it goes? And then we got the stupid lights thing.
There were people talking about the picnic again, weren't they? That's happening Saturday afternoon, all excitedly. I think they didn't go too overboard about the coronation, did they? As in people chatting about it. It's more to do with this stupid illumination thing, isn't it?
And they've been balancing it against Eurovision, haven't they? I think they've quite wisely done this. But I did see someone in one of the Archers groups on Facebook say that if Eurovision was on ITV, you wouldn't be hearing about it at all in the Archers.
That's true. But on this illumination thing, okay, so it's going to be at Bridge Farm now, isn't it?
It came on tonight, didn't it? They tested the lights just as Natasha and Tom were making up. He got his cock out and the lights came on and everyone went, ooh.
But somehow it's going to be all along the trail. What are these lights? And a laser display thing as well.
I think you're massively overthinking it, Keri.
But do you think Rob will suddenly be in amongst this darkness and then be illuminated?
That's how I imagine him emerging from the shadows, neon lighting his face. I have a theory that Rylan is going to kill Rob.
Rylan's got a bit of steel to him.
He has.
There was a nice story about Rylan where he was talking about some colleague who was having a go at a runner, and he basically took them to task and knocked them down a peg or two because, as he said, like the runner couldn't do it, so he had to. So I like Rylan.
No, he's lovely. He's a top bloke. But, is Rob going to appear, or will it be this thing where it's just never going to happen, and it's just Helen being on edge every time a doorbell goes, and she's, that doorbell always makes me jump.
Who doesn't predate Rob in this village, and who would be the most likely person to get chatting with him? I reckon it's Joy in the shop. And then you're going to hear Rob's voice coming back at her.
His name's Finian, you damned woman. What's the child called? Tarquil or something. Gideon. That's it.
But don't you think that's really likely? Because she gets chatting away in the shop all the time. Or it'll get to a Friday night, and then she'll be like, "Oh, what can I get you, sir?" And he'll just go, "Packet of digestives, please." And a knife.
That voice will be heard.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do that voice.
No. Well, Peter did it quite well then.
Peter said when Rob was going to go on a rampage. Didn't you have Susan saying, "You'll have to pay for those biscuits, Rob"? He's like, "No, I
won't." Yeah. I can't wait for him to arrive, to be honest.
I'm sure it's going to be the shop. Like, Susan will just clock off. Jim's not there.
Because Lee did say this week when they were on the sofa having a right old snog and sort of went, "Oh, you don't worry. Let's just have a cuddle. You don't need to try so hard."
Yeah, well, you never get over a bad blow, do you?
Yeah.
His final line was, "It'll all be okay. Don't worry." It's like,
yeah, no, it won't.
It's a real bonus for Lee that he's now got a cast iron excuse to be able to avoid having sex with Helen. I mean, it's worked out.
We don't have to have sex, love. Let's just have a cuddle and watch Top Gear.
No, I've been to therapy. I'm over it now. No. Honestly, I don't want to rush you. It's been 12 years, Lee.
I find how they speak to each other still very strange. She does speak to him as if he's a child, definitely. She made a curry, didn't she? And he said it was a 5-star meal. Weird way of phrasing it. And when she did say she was making a curry, he said, "I shall look forward to that." And I thought, does anyone say shall? I know it's technically correct, but would you say, "I shall look forward to that"? You wouldn't, would you? They just speak to each other in a very clunky, unnatural way, which makes it all seem odd.
It's not a comment on the actor, because like we said the other week, it takes a lot of skill to make Helen as unlikable as she is. But if I was acting in a scene and then there's just like a Komodo dragon in a dress opposite me, it's just Helen. It's just, she's not human. It just makes the whole. It's so difficult to describe, because I don't want anything bad to happen. To the idea of a woman being treated the way that Helen is awful. The idea that Rob could be out there, although there are Robs in the world out there treating women badly, is awful and horrible. But somehow with Helen, I just can't care. And so I can't care when Lee's trying to comfort her, and I can't care when she's talking about cheese, and I can't care when she's being a mother, and I can't care when she's, I don't know, being horrible to her brother because he's done a photo shoot, and I can't care when she goes to the shop or when she talks to Kirsty. Is there a recurring theme here? I just don't care.
I would disagree with you. It's not not caring. It's willfully wishing it all to happen and go wrong.
I don't want to have to hear her at all. I'm just so bored of her. It's like, come on, can't someone else? Because it's a bit like with Kirsty. It got to the point where it's like, it's just not possible that one person can have this much shite happen to them. That's why I celebrated so much when she was having sex with Julian Rhind-Tutt.
She had sex with Eric, Jacob's brother. Julian Rhind-Tutt was Trevor Fry, wasn't it?
Who was it who played Eric then?
The guy that does Talk Sport and other.
Yeah, he was brilliant. Anyway, I really liked him. Anyway, it's just so nice to hear Kirsty have a good time. And maybe that's what I need for Helen as well. It's just for her just to have a nice, simple plot where she does something like, I don't know, takes up windsurfing or something.
Where she sounds like a human. It's nothing to do with what happened to her with Rob. She's always been like this. How she speaks. It's very patronising, awful tone, really unlikable. I can't warm to her because she doesn't sound like an actual.
She sounds like a
human.
Komodo dragon in a dress.
Yeah.
Even when, so like, I'll give you a very precise example. Like when she was saying exactly the right thing, Susan said, "Oh well, Helen, it's extra responsibilities," and she's like, "Yes, of course, Susan. We'll have a chat, and I'm sure there'll be some extra money for it." Like when you say it like that in my vaguely human voice, you're like, "Oh, that's what a nice thing to do. What a nice person." Helen says it, and you're just like, "Die."
There's only ever one pun that I was able to do on the spur of the moment when Peter kept mentioning Komodo dragons, and it was the week that Caitlin was looking after the twins, and I said there is a Komodo dragon because Natasha said they had a baby monitor.
Yes, I remember that well.
Am I some kind of freak? Do I have a recurring Komodo dragon problem? Do I mention them a lot?
You did it twice in the last minute, but apart from that, I'm sure it's not a problem.
No.
Okay. I mean, we all have things we lean on, don't we, in our brain? But I'm like, is this some verbal tics I wasn't even aware of?
In a way, they are the perfect couple, aren't they? She's awful and he's a sap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You should really get your own Jeremy Kyle style show.
Keri. Oh man, alive! Keri would be. By the way, any commissioning people out there, Keri would be unbelievable as a one of those daytime talk shows.
Oh, great!
It's
that's really horrible.
This is Ray from Kidderminster and his girlfriend Tracy. Tracy wants Ray to take a paternity test, and Keri's just there delivering truth and justice.
Do you know what? I was in a pub last night, and I was eavesdropping to a couple behind me who were having a sort of breakup chat, and the guy was saying to the woman that she'd got into his Instagram and deleted it and read all his emails, kept him away from his friends, and wouldn't let him sleep one night where she knew he had a driving job the next day. And then he paid for dessert and they went off hand in hand. I was like, I wanted to go over and sort of run away from her.
Yeah, I had that once there was a couple in a restaurant, and me and the person I was with, we discussed at length whether it was appropriate or whether it was basically what was the moral thing to do, to leave them alone and mind our own business, or to let someone walk away in such an awful relationship because this person was being treated so badly by their partner.
Yeah,
it was really horrific to listen to.
There was that pity moment, wasn't there, where both Natasha and Helen thought that their partners weren't interested in them anymore, and they both reassured each other by saying, "No, you're great." I think the listenership was just there, like going,
I can imagine spending time with Natasha, but that sounds sinister. I can imagine wanting to hang out with Natasha.
Yeah. That when Kenton's phone rang. And that was when it all got exposed, wasn't it? And Jolene said to Tracy, "Here, look what's going on over there." Yeah. And she went, "What? No, Ken and Natasha." And she went, "No."
Oh, yeah, that was funny.
And,
nothing like that.
I mean, Kenton's subterfuge ended up with Bridge Farm getting the illumination, as we know. Was it Jolene said? Like, I bet she laid it on with a trowel. I think that was actually the slogan of Natasha's cosmetics company as well. But this whole thing about that Kenton's going to have to go up into the attic and pull down all these lights and light up the pub himself now.
Yeah, I demand our own switch-on moment.
But we also heard there's a dodgy stepladder.
Oh, God, now what?
I don't know, maybe he's going to garrote himself.
It's like the treacherous steps, isn't it, that never amounted to anything.
You two started to talk about treacherous steps behind my back for a while because you knew I was so fucking sick of it.
That's what makes them so treacherous. We did it behind your back, Peter.
Well, What's-Her-Face did die in the end, didn't she? Rob's mother. So maybe they didn't mention, but perhaps it was on the treacherous steps.
Are you saying that these steps kind of move in the night, go down to the south coast, headbutt Rob's mum?
It would still be the most plausible plot in the Archers for the last couple of months.
More plausible than Rylan showing up.
But the set of stairs went to the south coast. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah, that's much more likely than Sykesy.
Seeing as we're talking about plausibility, I give you Jim Lloyd suddenly going, "Oh, all right then," and deciding he does want to be part of the Eurovision shenanigans.
Yeah. Oh, I did a right good tweet, which was a picture of Demis Roussos, and I said it was Jim at the Eurovision thing.
I saw that. There was a very good reply as well, wasn't there?
Jimus Roussos. Yes. I just loved the picture because it was so like, you know, it was Demis Roussos with these fucking great sort of green spangly boots on and his beard, and that's so unlike Jim, which obviously made it hilarious. But Jimus Roussos is cracking, isn't it?
Do we have a name to put next to that? That's a quality.
I will find it.
Yeah. That's good. But I mean, Matthew, you are arguably Jim's biggest fan in all Archer's fandom.
Yeah, love that man.
There's not even the slightest wobble with this nonsense. But you don't blame Jim for it, presumably. You feel like this is the scriptwriter's doing, not Jim's fault.
Yeah, and he's also been dragged into it reluctantly as well. There was that bit where he called Harrison, first of all, because Chelsea said to him, you know, you've got Greece. He's like, well, I never even entered the competition. And then later he finds out it's this other guy, Julian Lloyd-Jones, who's Joy's neighbour.
Yeah.
He's quite clear, like, I mean, the scriptwriters have just discovered hipsters exist about 17 years too late.
He's got a beard and a man bun.
Jim went round to offer some advice on Greek mythology and history. And basically, it seems Jim Lloyd-Jones told him to f*** off and stick his Greek advice up his ass, didn't he? Because Jim kept hinting that had been what it said, but he couldn't say it.
And bare-chested.
He rang Harrison later again. He said, is it urgent? Because I'm at work. And he went, oh, I just thought it was a bank holiday. He went, well, crime doesn't respect bank holidays. And I was like, this is Harrison. You know he's at home in a Lordy suit listening to a Eurovision podcast, playing air guitar with a tennis racket in the mirror or something. He's not at work.
Yeah, he doesn't do crime when it's core hours, does he?
No, even...
He's sitting in a hide on the corner of the green, determined to catch the person who sticks the chewing gum on the seat on the bus stop. Yeah, just, I'll get him.
Even Helen said on Wednesday, I was glad it was Harrison and not some random police officer. Like Harrison. But yeah, it is all a bit odd that he's decided to step into the breach, as Harrison put it. But I think, do we get to hear most of this, though?
He excitedly said he's going to do the Iliad, didn't he?
Yes. I mean, one thing that I found out...
I hope he does.
They gave a shout out to my favourite ever porn movie in this whole Eurovision thing. The Noakes do Croatia.
Oh, I found who it was who did the Jimus Roussos tweet. It was Kerno27, just Ian on the Twitters. Oh, and what about Brookfield are doing The Sound of Music?
Oh, yes.
With Lederhosen.
They did the parade. What's the Lonely Goat Herd they were going to do. And then what else were they going to do? Do Re Mi, but Josh doesn't want to wear the Lederhosen or something.
This is all meant to be funny as well, isn't it? But when you hear it on the Archers, it's not funny, is it?
No, what would make it good is if they did the scene from the Abbey where the sisters hide them. And halfway through the scene, Vince just stands up in the bull and goes, they're in the crypt! When the brown shirts are trying to find the children.
By the way, quick. Sorry, you just reminded me, like, things that are supposed to be funny but aren't. What is the least funny thing in the world? There is one correct answer.
Way!
Sorry, I'll try again. What's the second least funny thing in the world? It's a rugby team in drag.
Ah.
Yeah, and I feel like there's very much a rugby team in drag kind of like vibe to a bunch of adult children and two soon-to-be pensioner parents dressed up, the Von Trapp family.
I would actually quite like to see that. I'd like to see David in Lederhosen, Ruth with some sort of plaits on, Bren and Josh.
So you think I'm being a curmudgeon?
Is Pip involved? Only because I don't like them and it's ridiculous, and I'd quite like to see them in a ridiculous situation.
Pip's going to be one of the brown shirts.
Pipler.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I never thought I'd feel sorry for the Nazis, but yeah, just did.
Joy was telling Linda that she met the Reverend Richard Cole.
Yeah.
Didn't she? I was just thinking, like, who on earth is so sad that they dine out forever on the story that they met an ex-member of the Communards?
Matthew, that's a dig at me, isn't it? Yes, I have dined out on that far, far, far too long, and I will continue to. I might even do a little recording of myself talking about it for my funeral.
Oh, Keri. While everyone thinks about Keri's funeral, let's have an advert. And we can come back and see if there's anything left. I don't think there is, though. Keri, Twitter, how's it been?
Great. Yes, at the Side Shed Pod, we're doing super well. And we have got 4 new reviews. Would you believe it? 4, and all of them are 5 stars.
It's almost like you always ask for 5-star reviews, Keri.
Well, seems silly not to, doesn't it?
True.
Really?
Keri, do you want to read one out?
Yeah, this one is by artist JP. They have written, I utterly love this. Keri, Peter and Matthew perfectly express the kinds of apoplectic thoughts I have whilst listening to the A Word. Hilarious observations and commentary, sparkling wit and wordplay, completely irreverent potty-mouthed exasperation, ruthless dissection, laugh out loud in public moments, as well as utterly stupendous guests, because they've been listening to our back catalogue.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want Russ's Canyon of Wydons, David as a Dalek, Ambridgistan, and an exclusively meat-based diet, this must-listen pod is for you. A perfect antidote to the everyday story of preposterously ludicrous country folk.
That's better than the podcast itself.
Do you remember Ambridgistan?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is when Peter meant to say Amsterdam Bridge and he said Ambridgistan.
The subconscious is a strange thing, isn't it? So we've got many this week, haven't we? So shall I do one?
Yeah.
This is Becky HC, Making the Archers Great Again. One of the funniest podcasts I've found. Makes even the dreariest Ambridge storylines worth listening to, and I can't listen to the Archers now without remembering some of the excellent lines and impressions from the Sideshow pod. Not sure about Keri's crush on Brian, but each to their own.
Oh, I don't know what they're talking about.
5-star review, Keri. Just suck up. Come on.
Yep. Quite right.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know either.
This one is from someone who's created one of those accounts that looks like they're a bot, but they're not, because they've got quite a specific complaint hidden between the praise, which I've heard a few times. So it's entitled Pat Chat. The theme tune followed by A Grog is very soothing. They keep forgetting the ominous Pat Chat jingle, which is a shame.
Pat Chat. Pat Chat. Pat Chat.
Pat Chat.
Pat Chat.
Keri hates Adam, or the Adam actor maybe, which I can agree with. Keri?
Both.
Ruthless. Absolutely ruthless.
Let the jokes write themselves sometimes. Who knows what I actually mean.
They always try to remember a thing about a character, but can't. And you shout at the podcast what the answer is and get to feel superior because you remember more or have listened longer. They're mean to Harrison, which is quite unfair. They love Chelsea, the person, not the football team. But they always end up talking about football, so I have to turn it off before the end. If I wanted a football podcast, I'd put one on. Not even an update on the Ambridge cricket results. And some bad jokes from Keri. Yeah, singling out Keri there.
Yeah.
All just part of the ramble where 3 come together to waffle on about how rubbish the Archers is. I never miss it. I'm a little bit suspicious about that bit, that they don't listen to the end to hear about the football, because I've got a feeling that that's quite canon, that complaint. And I think I might know who put that complaint in and about the football content. And we included their name in the football review once. So they messaged to say, oh, I got a shout out. So I think they do continue to listen. Maybe they don't anymore.
Part of the reason why we talk about the football is because loads of our listeners are in the Fantasy Football League. So
yeah, that is. I think that's the main reason, isn't it? I mean, Keri, do you want to talk about football this week?
Yeah, I do.
I don't.
Okay, that's that then. Hello from the Bad Place. This is by If Mouth. I started listening while on my mat leave during lockdown. There wasn't much else to do, so while it was handy to have the madness of the monologues vindicated, I wasn't sure it would be a lasting habit. My daughter is now 2.5, and I'm still eagerly awaiting the next episode. Maybe I have Stockholm Syndrome. No, you don't. Maybe it's because it's the equivalent of going to the pub with friends and having all the Archers chat my actual friends wouldn't countenance.
I like them.
Yeah, but this bit's good. You are my second favourite podcast. It might have been my favourite had you not referred to beautiful Birmingham as the bad place. Nowhere you wake up to the smell of melting chocolate can be all bad. Thank you for many happy dog walks and carry on punning.
I mean, it was just a joke, wasn't it? Where you said last week,
Oh, yeah.
where was that bad place that Den was in? And I
Yeah.
said Birmingham because he's a
Yeah.
Birmingham City fan, but he could have been in Felpersham or Borchester.
Yeah. I think they're
yeah.
joking too. We're actually their top favourites. So.
Birmingham's a cool city, cool night out. I will reserve a special place in hell for Birmingham New Street. It's a bloody absolute maze of nightmares. That
I don't think I've ever been to Birmingham.
no.
You've seen the Telly Savalas videos, though.
What Telly Savalas videos are those?
Oh, shut up! You know about them, don't you?
No.
Oh, this is another Justice moment. Right. Telly Savalas did a series of promotional videos about towns in the Midlands in the 1970s.
Stop it.
No, I'm not. They're quite famous. And there's one, he's like, the bull ring. Birmingham is my kind of town. Whether you want to get belts from the supermarket or this or that. It's unbelievable. I'll send Matthew the link to put in the description. It is absolutely
This
incredible.
is amazing sounding.
Does he do Swindon?
He does.
Stop it.
He does.
I've been going round this roundabout for 5 hours.
He does Portsmouth as well.
Why are there only dual carriageways in this city?
Just seen us fickling over there.
All right. I am not. I've never been. I never will be from Swindon. All right.
Okay, glad we got that out. It'll never get mentioned again.
Thank you.
No, it was Kojak who said it anyway.
Thanks to all those reviews. The reviews are massively helpful to us, as is Patreon. We've got a new patron, David Hanna. I want to say a massive thank you to him. Chris Rolfe got in touch last week when the last episode came out, and he said, as a royalist Patreon who's not a fan of Charles and Camilla, I enjoyed this cast, apart from Matthew's mocking of genealogy storylines. Heresy. However, he redeemed himself by his rubbing one out comments. Well, I have to say, it wasn't my comment, actually. I did desperately want to make a reference to the rubbing one out, but it was actually the DM on Instagram from Vincent that I read that got the...
Yes.
Other socials, as I just said, we have an Instagram, which is called @TheCiderShedPod, and we have a Facebook group, which you can find. It's called The Cider Shed Podcast. Come and join us there and tell us what you think about the Archers and us. How's that?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. We've got an email address, but no one ever emails, and I think we should just stop it.
Oh no, I think we could mention the email.
If you do want to give one of us the fright of our lives, it's hello at the cider shed at Gmail. Sorry, it's just hello at the cidershed.com.
Peter's forgotten what it is. It's been so long.
Surprised.
It's
been a long time.
It's hello at the cidershed.com, isn't it?
Yeah,
no.
That's right. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hello.
That doesn't sound like an email address.
It is though. It's maybe that's why people don't send it. They're like, oh, God, I've got some weird spam in my inbox. Hello at thecidershed.com. There, we've said it so many times, it's ingrained in people's psyche now, though.
So there you go.
So what are you two doing over the old coronavirus weekend?
I will walk out. If anyone talks to me about the coronation or puts it on the television or anything to do with coronation, I will walk out of the room. The only exception being if my son asks me a question about it, I will give him a long Republican polemic. But I want absolutely nothing to do with it.
Now, if there was a Coronation Street party, I'd go to that if it had sort of dressing up as Coronation Street people. I think I'd go as Rita Fairclough, I think. What with the red hair and that. So you've got none of it over there, I guess.
But I was going to say, is it big in Porto?
No.
Is there any sort of media coverage of it over there?
Well, there will be, because I only just arrived here when Harry and Meghan got married, and that was a big deal on TV here.
There is a guy from India whose kid goes to my nursery, and I was talking to him earlier on, and he did actually change my mind a little bit. He said he was planning to go into London to watch it, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Why are you going to do that?" I said, I told him that I'm not particularly fussed by it, but only to give him some context. I wasn't trying to be rude, and he was like, "It's an unbelievably rare and interesting event, and I just want to go and see it and kind of witness it." So I did think actually maybe I should watch it. He changed my mind a little bit. I was like, I should. should see what's going on, because it is very strange, and it'll be interesting to see. It'll actually be quite interesting to see how they've got to get the balance of pageantry and not taking it too seriously, right? Haven't they? So maybe I
don't think they will. They'll just go full on pageantry.
You reckon?
I know he's supposedly toned it down a bit, hasn't he? But not enough by a stretch. I have to say, I don't know who they are really good at the pageantry. But I can't imagine the logistics of organising. I'm more fascinated by how they make everything happen, how it happens. I think why they're doing it is awful, but it's quite, as a spectacle of organisation and logistics, I thought, how did they make all of this? I can't bloody plan getting 4 friends to be in a pub at the same time, let alone, marching hundreds of horses around the place.
It's the Duke of Norfolk who owns Arundel Castle. He's the one who's doing it all.
Is it?
Yeah, which I found fascinating. That that they haven't gone to some specialist events guy. It's the Duke of Norfolk. He's in charge.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just him doing it and not like a bunch of people that he's bossing around or something.
Yeah, that's closer to the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
He's got one moleskin notepad and a walkie-talkie, a loud hailer,
and a sack full of kebabs to throw at them when they get something wrong.
And a big stick to biff them with. Yeah, Arundel Castle's quite nice.
This whole thing with these people camping out they've been there since last Sunday on the Mall, haven't they? Waiting.
Yeah.
And it's like, they interviewed a few. That guy you sent the video to me. I'm going to post a link to that. And he said, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I was like, well, his son will be king. And have you seen his fingers? I don't think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, mate.
He's 75, mate.
Yeah. Give it a few years.
It's funny how all those people who do that sort of camping outside, they just look absolutely sort of off their rockers.
They don't look built for it.
There is, if you looked at the Venn diagram of the people who camp out on the Mall and the people that get eliminated in the second round of Britain's Got Talent, it would just be a circle.
Oh, yeah.
Because they have these people on they let them go to the second round of Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah, that's bad. I can't bear that on Britain's Got Talent. But I don't know. It's all so weird. God save our gracious King. God save our King. Ba 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 ba. Send her it's send him victorious now, isn't it?
Haven't they changed one of those lines?
Send him victorious, hands just like sausages.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. See you next week.
See ya. I've completely forgot a gag that I wrote, that was Kirsty was going to say to Helen, I found a man to help me with Spanish dance choreography online. His name's Roberto Teixeira. I'm glad I didn't make that joke.